Liu Ruyan was wearing a pure white wedding dress, but her makeup was smeared by tears. She gripped my arm. Her nails were almost digging into the sleeve of my expensive suit jacket. Today was our wedding. But now, for another man, she was going to abandon me and the packed hall of guests. The noise at the wedding felt as if it were sealed off behind a thick pane of glass. I could only see Liu Ruyan's trembling lips and the unhidden urgency and pleading in her eyes. That man was her childhood sweetheart, GDA, a name that had haunted my relationship with Liu Ruyan like a ghost. Just half an hour ago, everyone had thought he had died in an overseas accident, but now he was back. One phone call was enough to make the woman who was about to become my wife choose him over me in that very moment. He is dying. Fang Yuan, I have to see him one last time. Liu Ruyan's voice was thick with tears. Every word was tearing apart the last shred of dignity I had as a man. One last time. What a ridiculous excuse. 3 years of love, a grand wedding, the blessings of family and friends, all became a joke in that moment, and I became the most pathetic clown in that joke. I looked at her, this woman I had loved for 3 years, the woman I had sworn to protect for life. Her face was full of worry for another man. Not a trace of apology was for me. Maybe there was, but whatever apology she had was insignificant compared to GDA's life or death situation. It was utterly trivial. My heart turned ice cold in an instant. The murmurs around me began to sharpen. The bride chickened out. She's calling off the wedding. Who is that man? Why did he come back now, of all times? Why did I? Look at young Master Fang's face. He looks terrible. My parents' shocked, humiliated expressions, and my friends' bewildered looks felt like needles stabbing into me. I slowly pried Liu Ruyan's hand away. Her hand was cold. It was still shaking. Liu Ruyan seemed not to have expected me to let go so easily. I straightened the sleeve she had grabbed. My movements were slow and unhurried. Then I lifted my head. My gaze passed over her and looked toward the entrance to the ceremony hall, as if something more important than she was stood there. If you want to go, then go. My voice was calm. So calm that even I found it unfamiliar. A flicker of astonishment crossed Liu Ruyan's eyes. Then it was replaced by overwhelming joy. Thank you, Fang Yuan. Thank you for understanding. Wait for me. Once I handle things over there, I'll come right back. With that, she lifted the hem of her wedding dress and ran out of the ceremony hall without looking back. Like a butterfly breaking free of its cage, she flew toward her freedom and her true love. She did not even spare me a glance back. The huge ceremony hall fell into dead silence at once. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me. Pity, sympathy, ridicule, and gloating. I stood where I was, like an abandoned statue, clutching the microphone awkwardly, not knowing what to say. My father was shaking with rage. My mother was already covering her face and crying. Liu Ruyan's parents looked utterly ashamed and humiliated. My childhood friend, Zhou, who was also the best man today. Zhou carefully touched my arm. I took a deep breath. The tearing pain in my chest nearly suffocated me, but I couldn't fall apart. At least not here. I took the microphone from the master of ceremonies. I cleared my throat. The crackle of the electric current snapped everyone to attention. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming today. My voice carried through the speakers, clear and loud in every corner of the ceremony hall. I'm sorry, but there has been a small accident with today's wedding. I paused. My eyes swept across the many faces below the stage, each wearing a different expression. The bride has someone more important to see. So I decided to let her go. The crowd below erupted in an uproar. I paid them no mind. I went on. From this moment on, my engagement to Miss Liu Ruyan is over. We have no further relationship. As for today's wedding banquet, consider it an early breakup meal on me. The food is plentiful. Enjoy your meal. When I finished, I set the microphone back in place. Not the slightest hesitation. Then, under everyone's stunned gaze, I loosened the bow tie at my collar. I took off that ridiculous groom's jacket and tossed it onto the floor. I walked down from the raised platform, step by step. Each step felt like I was treading on my own shattered heart. But I walked steadily. My back stayed straight. I did not look at anyone. I walked straight out of the ceremony hall. Behind me came the exploding uproar of voices and my parents' anxious shouts. I did not turn back. After leaving the hotel, the blinding sunlight made me a little dizzy. I flagged down a taxi and headed for the airport. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror, as if he wanted to say something, then held back. I leaned back in the seat. I closed my eyes. Liu Ruyan, this is the choice you made. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Ruyan. Fang Yuan, I'm sorry, GDA is in critical condition. I can't get away. Can we postpone our wedding? Postpone. I stared at those 2 words, and a mocking smile touched my lips. She still thought that I would stand there like an idiot and wait for her. I did not reply. I blocked and deleted her number on the spot. I buried 3 years of love with my own hands in that instant. The car sped down the airport expressway at the fastest possible speed. I bought the earliest flight ticket out of the country. Where it was going did not matter. What mattered was getting out of here, leaving this city that had humiliated me to the point of exhaustion. The boarding announcement came over the speakers. I dragged my empty suitcase behind me and walked toward an unknown future. Just as I was about to step onto the jet bridge, my phone vibrated again. It was a picture message from an unfamiliar number. In the photo, Ruyan was wearing that pure white wedding dress, and she was holding GDA tightly in a hospital bed. Her face was lit with the smile of someone who had gotten back what she thought she had lost. GDA, though pale-faced, looked into the camera with eyes full of challenge and smug triumph. There was also a line of text below the photo. Fang Yuan, thanks for making this happen. I'm taking Ruyan with me. 5 years later, Paris, Champs-Élysées. A high-end business reception was in full swing. Fang Yuan held a glass of champagne, listening with a detached expression to the French businessman in front of him. Talk on and on. He wore a perfectly tailored black handmade suit. His posture was straight and tall. His presence was cold and sharp. 5 years was enough to change a great many things. He was no longer the man who, at his own wedding, had been abandoned like a miserable groom. Now, he was a rising star in Europe's financial world. The Qiming capital he founded had, in just a few years, risen rapidly on the back of its precise and ruthless investment style, turning the heads of countless established firms. What is your opinion? The French businessman finally stopped his long-winded speech and looked at Fang Yuan with eager anticipation. Fang Yuan swirled the wine in his glass. The golden liquid refracted a captivating glow under the crystal lights. Sorry, Mr. Delacour, he said, his voice low and magnetic. As for your company's project, I'm not interested. It was a clean, decisive refusal, with no room left for argument. Delacour's expression darkened at once, but faced with the current Fang Yuan, he did not dare show any displeasure. He could only make up an excuse and leave an annoyance. Boss, you just turned down another deal worth over 100 million. A cool voice came from beside him. King, Fang Yuan's chief assistant, and also his most capable partner, was wearing a sharp business suit. Her long hair was pinned up. She wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. The eyes behind the lenses were sharp and bright. A project that only peddles empty promises is not worth wasting time on. Fang Yuan set the wine glass on the passing waiter's tray. Are all the materials for the domestic project ready? King nodded. She handed him a tablet. They're all ready. The Yuanxing Group acquisition deal is our best chance to break into the domestic market. But King's tone was a little hesitant. The background of this company seems to have some connection to your past. Fang Yuan's fingertips slid across the screen. His gaze landed on the Yuanxing Group files. When he saw the name in the chairman column, he paused slightly. Zhenbang, Ruyan's father. What a coincidence. It's a small world. There was no flicker of emotion on Fang Yuan's face, as if it were just an ordinary name. It doesn't matter. Business is business, he said flatly. He gave him a faint glance. Don't ask anymore. As an assistant who had followed Fang Yuan for years, he knew his boss's temper very well. The things he decided on would not change because of any private feelings. Not to mention the woman who had driven him to leave the country, who was already a forbidden subject in his life. The flight has already been booked. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Fang Yuan gave a quiet acknowledgement. His gaze drifted to the glittering Paris nightscape outside the window. 5 years. He was finally going back. Not to return home in glory, and not to prove anything, only because that was where the next map of his empire lay. As for those people and things, they were merely just tiny obstacles on that map, waiting to be cleared out. The plane landed in the familiar city. After stepping out of the airport, the humid air hit him in the face, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible scent of osmanthus blossoms. Fang Yuan's steps faltered. He remembered that Ruyan loved osmanthus most. The thought flickered by, and was quickly extinguished by him. The one there to meet him was the head of the domestic branch, a young man named Li Wei. Welcome back to the country, Mr. Fang. I am Li Wei. Li Wei looked very excited, even a little nervous. After all, the man in front of him was a legend of the company. You've worked hard, Mr. Fang. and rubbed his brow. Take me straight to the company. Yes, Mr. Fang. The car drove smoothly into the city center. The scenery outside was both familiar and strange. There were more high-rises. The streets were wider too. But the old buildings hidden in the corners could still stir up vague memories. Fang Yuan closed his eyes. He did not look again. He did not want anything to affect his mood at this moment. Qiming Capital's domestic branch was located in the most bustling CBD in the city center. Fang Yuan's arrival caused quite a stir throughout the company. Everyone wanted a glimpse of the legendary Wolf of Wall Street. Fang Yuan ignored the probing looks. He walked straight into his office. Fang Yuan, this is tonight's invitation to Venture Capital Night. Li Wei placed a gilt-edged invitation on his desk. This is the biggest business banquet in the country this half year. Almost every big name and influential figure will be there. Chairman Liu of Yuanxing Group will also be there. Li Wei paused, carefully watching Fang Yuan's expression. And Dayu Technology CEO, GDA, will also attend. The name GDA was like a rusty key, suddenly prying open a sealed memory. The knuckles of Fang Yuan's hand around the fountain pen went slightly white. Dayu Technology, named after the last character in his and Liu Ryan's names. The company really was a joke. I know. His voice remained calm. Get ready. We'll go take a look tonight. Yes, boss. Li Wei left, gently pulling the door shut. The office fell quiet again. Fang Yuan leaned back in his chair, looking out at the traffic and neon lights beyond the floor-to-ceiling window. He had thought his heart had long since gone still. But when that name appeared again, the heart that had been quiet for 5 years still inevitably stirred a faint ripple. Not love, and not hate, but a cold, predatory kind of appraisal. GDA, Liu Ryan, it's been 5 years. I wonder how you've been. That farce from back then should have an ending by now. At the banquet, fashion and elegance filled the room, and glasses clinked all around. Fang Yuan's appearance instantly became the center of attention. His handsome looks, his cool, imposing presence, and the halo of being the founder of Qiming Capital made him draw everyone's gaze at once. Countless people held up their glasses and wanted to come over and chat. But Fang Yuan merely responded politely while searching through the crowd. Soon he found his target. At the other end of the banquet hall, a woman in a blue evening gown was talking with others, her arm looped through a man's. That woman was Liu Ryan. After 5 years apart, she had shed the innocence she once had and gained a few shades of mature charm. But between her brows, there still seemed to linger a trace of exhaustion she could not shake. The man beside her was undoubtedly GDA. He was dressed in a white suit, smiling with obvious self-satisfaction, full of the air of a successful man. Standing together, they did look like a well-matched pair. Just then, Liu Ryan seemed to sense something, and instinctively looked toward Fang Yuan. Their eyes met. For an instant, the air seemed to freeze. The smile on Liu Ryan's face stiffened. Her wine glass shook slightly in her hand, and some of the red wine spilled, staining the back of her fair hand. The shock, the panic, the disbelief in her eyes reached Fang Yuan clearly. A cold curve slowly appeared at the corner of Fang Yuan's mouth. He raised his glass and gave her a distant toast, then drained it in one go. Miss Liu, long time no see. This game has only just begun. Liu Ryan's body went rigid. She stared fixedly in that direction, at the man who had haunted her dreams for 5 years, and who had weighed on her conscience for 5 years. Fang Yuan had returned, more handsome than he had been 5 years ago, and even colder. The way he looked at her was as if she were a stranger. No, even colder than a stranger. That distant toast of his was full of condescending scrutiny and undisguised mockery. Liu Ryan's heart seemed to be clenched tight by an invisible hand, so painfully that she could barely breathe. Ryan, what's wrong? Jida beside her noticed her unusual reaction and followed her gaze. When he saw Fang Yuan, a flicker of surprise also passed through his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a complex mix of emotions. There was jealousy, and there was resentment, and a trace of deep, hidden caution. It's him. GDA's voice had gone tight. Liu Ryan did not answer. She only instinctively let go of GDA's arm. That tiny movement made GDA's face darken at once. What? Seeing your old flame and losing your mind? GDA's tone was laced with sharp, bitter sarcasm. Liu Ryan snapped back to her senses and shook her head, her face pale. I didn't. GDA let out a cold laugh. Then what are you hiding from? He seized Liu Ryan's wrist, squeezing so hard that she winced in pain. Go over and say hello. Let him see how happy you are now. GDA was practically dragging Ruyan toward Fang Yuan. On his face, he put back on that warm, successful man's smile, as if that sharp-tongued man had only been an illusion. Ruyan was forced to follow behind him. Every step felt extraordinarily difficult. She did not know what expression to wear in front of Fang Yuan, and she did not even dare look into his eyes. The guests around them also noticed the commotion. Curious looks turned their way one after another. After all, that marriage cancellation that had shaken the entire city was still fresh in many people's memories. Now the three main players were on the same stage again, and no one wanted to miss the show. Fang Yuan stood where he was, watching. As they came closer step by step, his face still held that indifferent expression. Qiming stood quietly at his side. "Boss," he said softly. "They're coming." Fang Yuan gave a low reply, not even bothering to lift his eyelids. "Fang Yuan, I've long admired you. I didn't expect to meet you here." GDA spoke first, holding out his hand. His posture was impeccable. "I'm GDA from Dayu Technology. This is my wife." When he said the word wife, he deliberately emphasized it, and gave Fang Yuan a provocative sideways glance. Yet the anger or jealousy he had expected did not appear on Fang Yuan's face. Fang Yuan did not even look at the hand he held out. His gaze only skimmed lightly over Ruyan's pale face, before settling on GDA. Dayu Technology. Fang Yuan's voice was very light, yet it carried an unquestionable pressure. "Never heard of it." Those three words were like three loud slaps that landed hard across GDA's face. GDA's hand froze in midair. The smile on his face also froze. A suppressed wave of laughter rose around them. Dayu Technology might have a little reputation at home, but in Fang Yuan's eyes, it really did not even qualify to be mentioned. GDA's face went red, then white, embarrassment pushing him to the limit. Fang Yuan, he wanted to explode. But the moment he thought of the other man's status and position, he forced the anger back down. "Fang Yuan, you really do have a short memory." GDA forced out a smile. "Our company may not be large, but we've made some modest achievements in AI. Maybe we'll have a chance to work together in the future. Cooperate." Fang Yuan finally looked at him properly once. That look was like he was looking at an overreaching clown. "Jida, I think you've got one thing wrong. Qiming Capital never works with companies whose reputation has collapsed, and it certainly won't have any dealings with people whose character has collapsed." Fang Yuan's voice was not loud, but every word reached the ears of everyone around them clearly. A company with a ruined reputation and a person with a ruined character was practically branding the word fraud straight onto GDA's forehead. GDA's face had turned a deep liver red. "What do you mean?" He finally could not hold back. He growled, "I mean exactly what I said." Fang Yuan no longer bothered with him. He turned and was about to leave. Today's goal had been achieved. A warning shot, a show of force. He wanted everyone to know that he, Fang Yuan, was back, and to make certain people understand that in his eyes, they were nothing. "Fang Yuan," Ruyan suddenly called after him. Her voice was trembling, and her eyes were filled with tears. "Do you have to be like this? What happened 5 years ago was my fault. But why take it out on GDA? What did he do wrong?" Hearing that, Fang Yuan stopped in his tracks. He slowly turned around. This time he looked at Ruyan seriously, at the woman he had once loved to the bone, who now was questioning him for another man. A ridiculous, bone-deep chill rose from the depths of his heart. What did he do wrong? He was wrong for showing up at my wedding. He was wrong for using dirty tricks to steal my bride. He was wrong for daring, 5 years later, to still show up in front of me with such shameless arrogance. Fang Yuan did not say those words out loud, because he thought explaining any of that to the woman in front of him would be a waste. He only looked at her, and the last trace of warmth in his eyes was completely gone. "Miss Liu," he said, his distance as sharp as a knife, "I don't think you are qualified to question me." As for him, Fang Yuan's gaze shifted to GDA. A cruel curve touched the corner of his mouth. "Whether he did wrong or not, you'll find out soon enough." After that, he did not linger. He left straight away with Qiming under the crowd's odd, complicated gazes, walking off without looking back, leaving only Ruyan and GDA frozen in place. Enduring accusations and whispers from every direction, Ruyan stared at Fang Yuan's ruthless back. Her body swayed, and she nearly lost her balance. She did not understand how things had come to this. She thought that after 5 years, even if he did not forgive her, at least he should have moved on. But the look in his eyes just now told her that no, he had not moved on. He was going to get revenge. A huge wave of fear instantly seized her heart. What are you looking at? GTA suddenly barked at the people around them. Then he viciously grabbed Liu Ryan's wrist. Are you not embarrassed enough? Let's go. He was practically brutal. He dragged Liu Ryan away in disgrace from the banquet hall. Once they got into the car, GTA could no longer keep up his polished image. He slammed a fist into the steering wheel, making a dull thud. Fuck Fang Yuan. How dare he humiliate me like that? Liu Ryan jumped in fright. Her wrist burned with pain. GTA, you're hurting me. Hurting you? GTA turned his head, his eyes bloodshot, his face twisted with fury. Now you know what pain is. When he was humiliating me just now, why didn't you say anything? Are you still thinking about him? Do you regret it? No, Liu Ryan cried. No. GTA gripped her chin and forced her to look at him. Liu Ryan, listen to me. You are mine. 5 years ago, you chose this yourself. For the rest of your life, don't even think about going back to his side. You'd better remember who it was. Who pulled you out of that ridiculous wedding? His words hit her like a bucket of ice water dumped over her head. Liu Ryan stopped crying instantly. Her whole body went cold. Yes, she chose this herself. But why did the man she had chosen with everything on the line feel so strange and terrifying to her now? She stared at the streets flashing backward outside the window, her heart completely lost and empty. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fang Yuan sat in the car. His face was cold and stern. Qing glanced at him through the rearview mirror. He hesitated for a moment, then still spoke up. Boss, weren't you a little too impulsive just now? Openly severing ties at the banquet could affect our next acquisition deal. Fang Yuan kept his eyes closed and said flatly, I want him to lose his composure. Once a person starts panicking, they make mistakes easily. Qing froze for a second, then immediately understood. Every move the boss made was calculated. That seemingly impulsive humiliation just now was actually part of the plan. And what about Miss Liu? Fang Yuan opened his eyes, his gaze completely indifferent. A foolish woman being toyed with by a man, not worth worrying about, not worth my attention. Still, he did remind me of something. A cold smile touched Fang Yuan's lips. Didn't he ask what GTA did wrong? Then I'll let him see for himself what kind of man she chose. He took out his phone and dialed the number. Hello, it's me. Help me look into someone. GTA from Dayu Technology. I want everything on him, especially everything he did around the time he returned to China 5 years ago. The more detailed, the better. Liu Ryan's accusation was like a tiny thorn, pricking Fang Yuan's heart, then being pulled out without the slightest hesitation. It left not even a trace of blood behind. He would never again let this woman stir up any unnecessary emotions in him. The only thing he cared about now was the man named GTA. What kind of tricks was he really playing? Back at the hotel, Fang Yuan did not rest. He immediately called a meeting with the domestic branch's project team. The atmosphere in the conference room was solemn. Fang Yuan sat at the head seat, listening to Li Wei's report on the due diligence report for Yuanxing Group. According to our investigation, Yuanxing Group's financial condition over the past 3 years has been terrible. Its debt ratio has reached 200%. Several projects have come to a halt, and cash flow is nearly broken. Li Wei's voice was heavy. To revive the company, Chairman Liu has been seeking outside financing, but with little success. He even mortgaged all the real estate under his name, including the Liu family ancestral home. Fang Yuan tapped his fingers lightly on the table, making a steady rhythm. The Liu family had already reached the end of the road. That was within his expectations. A father stabbed in the back by his daughter at her own wedding, once completely drained, would naturally see his business go downhill. We also found something very strange. Li Wei flipped to the next slide of the presentation. Most of Yuanxing Group's funds flowed into a company called Dayu Technology, and these transfers, though officially labeled as investments and loans, had almost no effective collateral or guarantees. It looked more like one-sided blood transfusions. A low murmur broke out in the conference room. This was no longer a business transaction. It was blatant transfer of benefits. Fang Yuan's gaze turned cold in an instant. Dayu Technology, GDA's company. He enunciated each word. Yes, boss. Li Wei nodded. Dayu Technology's startup capital, and the later rounds of R&D funding, almost all came from Yuanxing Group. You could say that without Yuanxing, there would be no Dayu today. Fang Yuan leaned back in his chair, a trace of understanding flashing in his eyes. So that was it. GDA had not only stolen his bride, he had also hollowed out the bride's family. He'd played a truly huge game. Zhenbang is an old hand. How could he make such a basic mistake? Qing asked from the side. That really doesn't make sense. Unless he had a reason he couldn't refuse. Fang Yuan's gaze turned deep and unreadable. For example, his precious daughter cried and begged in front of him, asking him to save her dying sweetheart. With a nearly cruel calm, Fang Yuan voiced that guess. Everyone in the conference room fell silent. They could almost picture the scene from back then. A daughter blinded by love, and a father who loved his daughter deeply, ultimately held hostage by family ties. A complete scam. Keep digging, Fang Yuan ordered. I want to know exactly what GDA used that money for. I want the ownership of Dayu Technology's core technology patents, and his personal asset situation. All of it, clearly. Yes, the meeting ended. The others dispersed. Only Fang Yuan and Qing remained in the office. Boss, it looks like now. GDA is a total fraud. Qing's tone carried a hint of disdain. He used the Ruyan's feelings and squeezed the Liu family dry. No, just a fraud. Fang Yuan stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked down at the city's nightscape. He's a gambler with an enormous appetite. He bet that Liu Ruyan's love for him would let him have anything he wanted. He bet that Liu Zhenbang's love for his daughter would keep pouring money into him. Now, he wants to bet that my investment will let him make a full comeback. A cold smile curled at Fang Yuan's lips. Too bad for him, because I'm the one sitting at the table this time. Qing looked at Fang Yuan's profile. The light cast shifting shadows across his face, making him seem unreadable. He knew this hunt had officially begun, and GDA was the one being targeted, and still had no idea he was the prey. Over the next few days, Fang Yuan made no move. He no longer contacted the Liu family or GDA. Instead, like a real investor, he began meeting frequently with other project teams in China. The more high-profile he was, the more anxious GDA became. Dayu Technology's cash chain was already on the verge of collapse. If he still could not get Qiming Capital's investment, everything he had would vanish. Finally, GDA could not sit still anymore. He used every connection he had to try to arrange a meeting with Fang Yuan, but without exception, all were rejected by Qing on the grounds that his schedule was full. With nowhere left to turn, he could only play the one card he had left. That afternoon, Liu Ruyan came to Fang Yuan's office while he was handling paperwork. Qing knocked lightly and came in. Boss, Miss Liu is here. She said she has something very important and wants to see you. Without even lifting his head, Fang Yuan said. She said it's about what happened 5 years ago. She wants to explain everything to you. There was something subtle in Qing's tone. Fang Yuan's hand stopped over the document. Explain. She only thinks of explaining now. Ridiculous. He looked up. His eyes were ice-cold. Let her in. He wanted to hear what kind of news story she could spin. A few minutes later, Liu Ruyan was brought in. She looked haggard. She was wearing a plain dress, with no makeup on, and faint dark circles under her eyes. When she saw Fang Yuan, her lips moved. She seemed about to say something, but in the end, she said nothing. Fang Yuan's voice broke the silence. Liu Ruyan took a deep breath, as if she'd made up her mind. Fang Yuan, I know you still hate me. I know you probably won't believe anything I say. But 5 years ago, I really had a reason for leaving the wedding. Her voice trembled, and her eyes filled with tears again. At the time, GDA had a very serious illness. The doctor said he might not survive a month. His only wish was to see me one more time. I couldn't just stand by and watch him die. Am I done? Fang Yuan cut her off coldly. Liu Ruyan froze. Fang Yuan stood up and walked step by step toward her. His height loomed over her, oppressive. Liu Ruyan, do you really think I'd still believe this nonsense? Or do you think that after 5 years, the same old excuse will make me soften again? Liu Ruyan was flustered by his stare and kept backing away. I'm telling the truth. It's true. Fang Yuan laughed. His laugh was full of mockery. Then tell me about your GDA. What illness did he have 5 years ago? Which hospital treated him? Who was his attending doctor? The barrage of questions left Liu Ruyan speechless. She knew nothing. At the time, she was only busy worrying and keeping him company. She believed everything GDA said. She had never doubted him. Seeing her panicked expression, the mockery in Fang Yuan's eyes deepened. Can't come up with a story now? Or did your GDA forget to prepare your script in advance? No, Liu Ruyan shook her head desperately. Tears finally spilled down her face. Fang Yuan, believe me. Please, believe me. Fang Yuan bent down, leaned in close to her ear, and in a voice only the two of them could hear, said each word deliberately. Ruyan, put away that pathetic act. The reason you came here, isn't it to ask me to invest in your GDA's company? Go back and tell him not to send you to do anything this humiliating again, because that face of yours is worthless to me. Ruyan was stunned as if struck by lightning. Her whole body went rigid. He knew everything. All her disguises and excuses were nothing but a transparent joke to him. Shame, humiliation, and despair flooded her at once. Fang Yuan straightened up and spat out his final word. Cold and utterly devoid of feeling, Ruyan left in a daze. Watching her retreating figure, there was no ripple in Fang Yuan's eyes. Just then, his phone rang. It was the private investigator. Boss, I found something. 5 years ago, after GDA returned to China, there was no record of any hospitalization. But we found something even more interesting. The day after he came back, he went to a law firm to ask about how to legally transfer company assets and avoid debt risk. The investigator's words were like a missing puzzle piece, slotting perfectly into Fang Yuan's theory. A man who lied about having a terminal illness did not go to the hospital first after returning home, but instead went to ask how to drain a company dry. The answer was obvious. Fang Yuan hung up, a faint, cold smile touching his face. Jida, you're even more impatient than I expected. Qiming walked in quietly, holding a file in his hand. His expression was serious. This is news we just intercepted. GDA is in contact with people from Tianqi Capital. Tianqi Capital is one of Qiming Capital's main domestic competitors. He wants to sell Dayu technology to Tianqi. Fang Yuan frowned slightly and gave a slight shake of his head. According to our informant, it seems he wants to use part of Dayu Technology's future equity as collateral to get a bridge loan from Tianqi and solve his current cash crunch. At the same time, he also told Tianqi's people that he was confident he could land a round of funding from our Qiming capital. Fang Yuan laughed when he heard that. GDA really was a born con man, using the vague promise of Qiming capital as bait to pry money out of Tianqi capital. He was trying to take both sides, make a killing with no capital down. A very neat little scheme. What was Tianqi's reaction? Fang Yuan asked. Tianqi's person in charge, Zhou Dai, is very cautious. He didn't agree right away. He said he needed time to evaluate it, but it was obvious he was tempted. Qiming analyzed. After all, if they can poach a project we're eyeing, it would be a huge win for them. Then make Zhou Dai even more tempted. A glint flashed in Fang Yuan's eyes. Make the arrangements. Tell them I'm going to Dayu Technology tomorrow for an on-site inspection. Casually leaked that news to Tianqi's people. Qiming froze for a moment, then immediately understood Fang Yuan's intent. Boss, are you trying to play hard to get? Fang Yuan shook his head. I'm going to kill with a borrowed blade. He was going to make Tianqi capital the last straw that crushed GDA. The next day, the news that Fang Yuan would be inspecting Dayu Technology spread like wildfire. It quickly spread through the industry. Everyone thought it was a sign that Qiming Capital was about to inject funds. Dayu Technology's stock jumped on the news. GDA was even more smug and energized, as if he could already see himself standing at the peak of his life. He personally greeted Fang Yuan at the company entrance, putting himself very low. He was like a completely different person from the arrogant man at the banquet that night. Mr. Fang, welcome, welcome. Having you come to our company really honors us. Fang Yuan merely gave a faint nod. He ignored the hand GDA held out and walked straight into the company. GDA didn't look embarrassed. He trailed after him, bowing and scraping, personally acting as his guide. Mr. Fang, this is our R&D department. We have one of the country's top AI algorithm teams. This way is our product showcase area. This is our latest intelligent interactive system. Fang Yuan kept walking and looking around. His face showed little expression, neither approving nor rejecting. That left GDA, following behind him, on edge. He could not figure out Fang Yuan's real thoughts. Ruyan had come too. She had put on careful makeup today, wearing a proper business suit. As the company's co-founder, she accompanied the inspection, but she still did not dare meet Fang Yuan's eyes. She stood beside GDA, like a delicate, soulless puppet. Fang Yuan's gaze stayed on her for less than a second. Then it moved away. Halfway through the inspection, Fang Yuan suddenly made a request. GDA, I want to see your company's financial statements and the patent certificates for your core technology. GDA's expression changed slightly at once. These were the most sensitive secrets, and also his biggest weakness. The company's finances were a complete mess, and those so-called core technologies, many of the patent owners were still listed under Yuanxing Group's name. As for that, the financial statements contain company secrets, so they're not very convenient to share. GDA tried to dodge the request. Not convenient. Fang Yuan stopped in his tracks. He turned and looked at him. His gaze was sharp as a blade. GDA, I'm here to discuss an investment, not to go sightseeing. If even the most basic financial condition and ownership of the technology cannot be shown to me, how do you expect me to believe my money won't just go down the drain? His voice was not loud, but it carried undeniable authority. A fine layer of sweat broke out on GDA's forehead. He knew he had no way out. If he couldn't satisfy Fang Yuan today, all his earlier efforts would be wasted. He gritted his teeth. Fine. I'll have finance prepare it right away. He was thinking to himself. Financial statements could be faked, but patent certificates could not. Still, he could gamble that Fang Yuan wouldn't see through the trick. After all, Yuanxing Group was now basically the Liu family's company, and Liu Ruyan was his woman. By extension, those patents counted as his too. Half an hour later, in the conference room, Fang Yuan received two documents. One was a carefully polished financial statement, looking prosperous on the surface. The other was a set of copies of the patent certificates for several core technologies. Fang Yuan picked up the financial statement, flipped through it casually, then tossed it aside. This childish level of forgery was easy for him to see through at a glance. His gaze fell on the patent certificates. He studied them very carefully. He turned them page by page. GDA's heart climbed into his throat. Liu Ruyan also clenched her fist nervously. Finally, Fang Yuan finished looking through them. He closed the documents and leaned back in his chair, silent. The atmosphere in the conference room was stifling. Mr. Fang, what do you think? GDA asked cautiously. Fang Yuan lifted his eyes to look at him. A faint, teasing smile appeared on his face. The technology is good. The company also has a lot of potential. Hearing that, GDA and Liu Ruyan's eyes lit up at the same time. There is hope, but I still have one question. Fang Yuan changed the subject. All these patents are owned by Yuanxing Group. If I invest in Dayu technology, how should the usage rights for these technologies be handled? If one day, Yuanxing Group licenses these patents to our competitor, wouldn't my investment just make me the sucker? That was indeed a critical issue. GDA felt a surge of delight. This was exactly the question he had been waiting for. This was his best chance to show Fang Yuan that he had everything under control. He glanced at Liu Ruyan beside him, then said to Fang Yuan with confidence, "You don't need to worry about that at all. Although Yuanxing Group is the patent owner, the company's control is actually already in my hands. My father-in-law is getting old. I'm basically handling everything at the company now." He said it lightly, as if Yuanxing Group were already his family's backyard. Liu Ruyan's face paled. She hadn't expected GDA would actually say something like that in front of Fang Yuan. The smile on Fang Yuan's face deepened. "Is that so? Then let me ask you, Mr. G, what gives you the right to manage Yuanxing Group's affairs? As the Liu family's son-in-law, or as the president of Dayu Technology?" That left GDA speechless. No matter which identity you use, legally, you have no right to dispose of Yuanxing Group's assets, including these patents. Fang Yuan's tone remained calm, but every word landed like a hammer, striking GDA's vital spot. Unless, his gaze moving back and forth between GDA and Liu Ruyan, you can get Chairman Liu Zhenbang of Yuanxing Group to personally sign a legally binding, permanent, irrevocable exclusive patent licensing agreement. Can you do that? GDA's face darkened to the extreme. Getting Liu Zhenbang to sign an agreement like that was harder than climbing to the heavens. That stubborn old man had long since held a grudge against him. If it weren't for Liu Ruyan's sake, he probably wouldn't even be allowed through the company doors. Watching GDA eat humble pie, Fang Yuan sneered inwardly. That was exactly what he wanted. He wanted GDA to know it would not be so easy to get money from him. He was forcing GDA to take the final risky move. "Mr. Fang, this may take some time." GDA wiped his sweat and said reluctantly, "It's fine. I'm not in a hurry." Fang Yuan stood up, adjusted his suit, and gave you 3 days. In 3 days, I want to see that agreement. Otherwise, our cooperation ends here. And one more thing, as a friendly reminder. Fang Yuan walked to the door, then suddenly looked back. His smile was full of meaning. Tianqi Capital's Zhou Dai isn't a patient man. Don't let me come up empty-handed here and block his route to borrowing money over there. With that, he strode off, leaving GDA standing there alone. His face was so dark it looked like water could drip from it. Fang Yuan's words were like a knife. driving straight into his heart. He knew that Fang Yuan had already seen through all his tricks. Now he had been forced to the cliff's edge. Either he had to get Liu Zhenbang under control, get that agreement, and take life-saving money from Fang Yuan, or come away with nothing on both sides. The company would go bankrupt, and he would have nothing. A flash of ruthlessness crossed GDA's eyes. He absolutely could not lose. Since persuasion would not work, then he would not be blamed for getting rough. He turned and strode toward Liu Ruyan. "Come home with me." His tone now was pure command, leaving no room for argument. Liu Ruyan was frightened by the madness in his eyes. "Jida, what are you doing?" "What am I doing?" GDA seized her wrist, his grip so hard it felt like he would crush her bones. "We're going home. I'll make your damned old man sign it for me." This was exactly the result Fang Yuan wanted. He wanted to rip away GDA's gentlemanly mask himself. He wanted Liu Ruyan to see clearly what kind of man she had chosen at any cost. What an ugly face it really was. He wanted GDA, in his despair, to reveal his most insane, most genuine side. Driving steadily, King glanced at Fang Yuan, who was resting with his eyes closed in the rearview mirror. "Boss, GDA, do you think he'll really pressure Chairman Liu?" "He will." Fang Yuan's voice was very soft, but extremely certain. Someone who can fake his own death to deceive someone's feelings is capable of anything. When every path is blocked, his only choice is to lash out in panic. King fell silent. He could not imagine someone could be shameless to this extent. "Then let's wait." Fang Yuan opened his eyes at once. His eyes were clear and calm. "Wait until the Liu family's show officially begins." The atmosphere in the Liu family mansion was so suffocating it felt like water could be wrung from it. Jida slapped a patent, exclusive licensing agreement, onto the coffee table. It hit with a harsh, deafening bang. "Dad, just sign it," he said to Liu Zhenbang, who was sitting in the seat of honor on the sofa. His tone was blunt. He could not even be bothered to keep up the last shred of fake respect. Liu Zhenbang trembled with rage. He pointed at GDA's nose, but for a long moment he could not get a single word out. You heartless bastard. I handed my daughter over to you, and you drained most of the company's assets dry. Now you still want to come and steal my last savings?" Liu Zhenbang's face was full of regret and fury. He had long seen that GDA was no good, but his daughter had been so completely bewitched by him. She even threatened to die if they were separated. He kept backing down again and again, only to have the other side push further and further. "Dad, that's not fair." GDA let out a cold laugh, then crossed one leg over the other. "I took the company's money to help Dayu technology grow and expand. Once the company goes public, your Liu family will still be a major shareholder. When that time comes, the returns will be far beyond what this little patent fee can compare to. I'm thinking about the Liu family's future." He twisted black into white and said it with complete confidence. "Bullshit," Liu Zhenbang said furiously, grabbing the teacup on the table and preparing to throw it. But Liu Ruyan at his side held him back tightly. "Dad, please don't be angry. Your health is not good." Liu Ruyan begged through tears. Then she turned to GDA. "Jida, please don't force Dad like this, okay? Let's think of another way." "Another way?" GDA sounded as if he had just heard the biggest joke in the world. "You tell me, what other way is there?" Fang Yuan has made it perfectly clear. If we don't get that agreement, he won't put a single cent into the company. We won't even be able to pay next month's salaries. We'll all be finished. He shoved Liu Ruyan's hand away. His face twisted viciously as he growled. "Liu Ruyan, get this straight. Everything I'm doing today is for your sake. If it weren't for you, would I have to put up with Fang Yuan's attitude? If it weren't for you, would I be here, begging this stubborn old fossil in a low voice?" Liu Ruyan was driven back by his shouting. All the color drained from her face. She looked at the stranger in front of her, her heart filled with fear. Wasn't this the GDA who had once been gentle and considerate in front of her? Wasn't this the GDA who had sworn to love her for life? "I asked you a question. You keep pushing, GDA. I'm telling you, today, the signature will be signed whether he wants to or not." As he spoke, his gaze turned to Mrs. Liu, who was trembling nearby. "Mom, you should talk him into it too. You don't want to see Ruyan end up with nothing alongside me, do you?" His tone was full of threat. Mrs. Liu had always been soft-hearted. After being frightened like that, tears immediately began to fall. She walked over to Liu Zhenbang, holding onto his sleeve. "Old man, why don't you just sign it? For Ruyan's sake." Liu Zhenbang looked at his timid wife and his frightened daughter, and a great wave of desolation rose in his heart. A family that had always been loyal and upright had produced a traitor. Now he was alone and helpless. He closed his eyes, his face full of pain and despair. Seeing that, GDA knew the time was about right. He picked up the agreement and the pen and handed them to Zhenbang again. His tone softened a little. Dad, don't worry. As soon as Fang Yuan's investment arrives, I'll find a way right away to return all the money taken from Yuanxing Group with interest. GDA, swear to heaven. He raised his hand with utter certainty, but there was not a trace of sincerity in his eyes. Zhenbang opened his eyes and stared at him fixedly, as if he wanted to see straight through his soul. After a long moment, he gave a miserable laugh. Fine, I'll sign it. He took the pen and, with shaking hands, signed his name at the bottom of that agreement. Every stroke seemed to drain all his strength. After signing, he looked as though all the life had been sucked out of him and collapsed onto the sofa. Ruyan cried out and rushed over. GDA did not even look at them. He snatched the agreement and checked it over carefully. After confirming there was no mistake, a wildly ecstatic smile spread across his face. It's done. He held that agreement like a ticket to heaven. He did not even say another word to the Liu family. He turned and ran out in excitement. He had to go find Fang Yuan right away. He had to tell that high and mighty man that he, GDA, had won. Watching GDA's heartless back, Ryan's heart sank all the way to the bottom. She supported her father, whose face was ashen. Tears slid down silently. She finally understood how horribly wrong she had been. For a selfish, self-serving liar, she had personally dragged her family into an abyss with no way back. Fang Yuan soon received the news that GDA had signed the agreement. King told him, "Boss, GDA just contacted me. He said the agreement is already in hand and wants to see you right away." As expected, there was not the slightest surprise on Fang Yuan's face. "Tell him I'm waiting for him at the company." Also, a cold gleam flashed in Fang Yuan's eyes. "Bring the gift we prepared to." Half an hour later, GDA walked into Fang Yuan's office beaming. "Boss, I didn't let you down." He held out that signed agreement, like he was offering up a treasure. Fang Yuan took it. He did not even look at the signature, and casually tossed it aside. That made GDA's smile stiffen for a moment. "Fang Yuan, this is..." "Don't rush, GDA." Fang Yuan motioned for him to sit down. Then he pushed a file in front of him. "Before looking at your agreement, why not take a look at mine first?" GDA picked up the file in confusion. Several large words were printed on the cover. Investigation report on Mr. GDA's actions before and after his return to China 5 years ago. Investigation report. GDA's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling. His hand trembling, he opened the first page. There, in black and white, were his complete records of every trip he made after returning to China 5 years ago. Going to a law firm to ask about asset transfers, buying forged medical records on the black market, and secretly meeting with several so-called creditors to scheme together. Every single act was recorded clearly. Even the exact times and locations were correct to the minute. GDA's face went instantly pale. Cold sweat poured down his forehead. He jerked his head up, staring at Fang Yuan in disbelief. You investigated me. Otherwise what?" Fang Yuan leaned back in his chair, looking at him with unhurried calm. "Do you think my money is that easy to take? GDA, you used a flimsy terminal illness lie to steal my fiancée and drain her family assets. And now you still want to use a coerced agreement to trick me into investing." Fang Yuan's voice grew colder and colder. "Do you think everyone in the world is a fool, and that you're the only smart one?" GDA opened his mouth, but not a single word came out. He felt as if he had been stripped naked, laid bare before Fang Yuan. All his schemes and sordid secrets had nowhere to hide. "I've already had this report copied many times." Fang Yuan picked up the agreement on the table and gave it a light shake. "Tell me, if I hand this report, along with this agreement that was signed under duress, to the police or to the media, what do you think will happen? Fraud, coercion, and misappropriation of company assets. Add up those charges and see how many years you'll spend inside." "No, you can't do this." GDA finally broke. He sprang up from the sofa and lunged toward the desk. He wanted to grab the report. "Fang Yuan, you can't ruin me." Fang Yuan only looked at him coldly, not moving an inch. The two bodyguards at the door rushed in at once, one on each side, pinning the frenzied GDA down hard. "Let me go, Fang Yuan, you despicable bastard." GDA kept struggling and roaring like a madman. Fang Yuan stood up and looked down at him from above. His eyes were full of contempt. Compared with you, I still fall far behind. Don't you like to gamble? Now I'll give you one last chance. Fang Yuan picked up the deadly report and the agreement Liu Zhenbang had signed, then walked over to the shredder. These two documents. I'll destroy only one. You choose. Ji Da froze. He stared at the two documents, conflict raging in his eyes. One was evidence that could ruin him and send him to prison. The other was something he had schemed for and emptied everything for. The key to wealth and freedom. Heaven or hell. It all came down to a single thought. I choose it. I choose it. A strangled sound came from GDA's throat, as if someone had a hand around it. In the end, survival beat greed. Destroy the report. Please, destroy it. He screamed. A cruel curve touched Fang Yuan's lips. That was exactly the answer he wanted. He was going to sever every one of GDA's hopes himself. He took the agreement signed by Liu Zhenbang and slowly fed it into the shredder. A harsh grinding sound rang out. The sheet that carried all of GDA's ambitions and desires was instantly cut into countless pieces. GDA's eyes widened at once. He stared wide-eyed at his hopes, being utterly crushed. He let out a desperate roar, but Fang Yuan acted as if he had heard nothing. He put the intact investigation report back on the desk, looking at GDA, collapsed on the floor with a deathly gray face. He said flatly, now you can get lost. Remember, your evidence is still in my hands. Don't let me see you again. GDA was dragged out by the bodyguards. He looked like a dead dog stripped of its backbone, his eyes hollow. All he could mutter was, impossible. Fang Yuan watched the office doorway settle back into silence. There was no joy of victory on his face, only an unmelting coldness. This long-planned revenge. When it finally came to an end, he realized he felt nothing like the satisfaction he had expected. What remained was only endless emptiness. King walked in softly and placed a glass of warm water by his hand. Boss, it's all over. Fang Yuan picked up the glass and took a sip. How is the Liu family doing? After signing the agreement, Chairman Liu was so furious he suffered a stroke. He was sent to the hospital. He's still not out of danger. King's tone was heavy. Fang Yuan's hand tightened slightly around the glass. Liu Zhenbang had once spoken highly of him, an elder who treated him like half a son. Yet in the end, he was brought to such a state. Fang Yuan felt an indescribable knot in his chest. He hated Liu Ryan's betrayal, but he could not truly hate this pitiful father dragged down by his daughter. And Liu Ryan? He asked again. Miss Liu has been keeping vigil at the hospital. Apparently, after GDA left our company, he went to see her. The two of them had a huge fight. GDA even hit her. Now GDA has vanished. Dayu Technology has lost its leader. The company is in total chaos. Several major shareholders are already demanding. Several major shareholders were already threatening to pull out. King reported that Tianqi Capital had also announced the termination of all cooperation talks with Dayu Technology. When a tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When a wall falls, everyone pushes it. GDA's business empire collapsed overnight. All of it had been calculated by Fang Yuan. As for Yuanxing Group, the situation is even worse. The moment Chairman Liu fell, the banks came knocking to collect the debt. The company's accounts were frozen. Several ongoing projects have also been completely suspended. If the loan isn't repaid within 3 days, Yuanxing will have to declare bankruptcy, then liquidation. King looked at Fang Yuan, waiting for his next instruction. Everyone knew that now the only thing that could save Yuanxing was Qiming Capital, and only Fang Yuan could do it. Fang Yuan fell silent. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the sky outside the window. He had gotten his revenge on GDA, and had also indirectly brought about the Liu family's collapse. He had already achieved his goal. By rights, he should leave at once and head back to Paris to continue building his business empire. Whether the Liu family lived or died had nothing more to do with him. But in his mind, Liu Zhenbang's aged, haggard face appeared. So, did that spirited elder from 5 years ago, patting his shoulder and smiling as he said, from now on, I'll leave Liu Ryan in your hands. That scene flashed through his mind. Fang Yuan let out a barely audible sigh. Under the name of Qiming Capital, set up an asset custodial task force to negotiate all of Yuanxing Group's debt with the banks. We'll take it over. King froze. Boss, what are you doing? He thought he had heard wrong. Taking over Yuanxing's debt would mean pouring in a huge amount of capital. And right now, Yuanxing is a total mess. There is no chance of any return. This was completely unlike Fang Yuan's usual investment style. This isn't an investment at all. It's blood transfusion. Do as I say. Fang Yuan's tone left no room for argument. Qing opened his mouth, but in the end swallowed his questions back down. Yes, boss, he knew. There had to be a reason for doing this. Maybe it was to preserve the last shred of dignity for that old man lying in a hospital bed. Or maybe it was to put a not-too-cruel ending to the past that had betrayed him. At the hospital, Ruyan was pressed against the ICU window, looking at the father inside, his body covered in tubes, and completely lifeless. She cried until her heart felt torn apart. Her mother had already cried herself unconscious and been moved to a regular ward. The once warm, happy home was shattered overnight, and the culprit behind it all. It was her. She was the one who let a wolf into the house. It was her. She was blind enough to fall for a piece of trash. Regret gnawed at her insides like a venomous snake. She had nothing left now. The person she loved was gone. Her father had collapsed, and her family was about to fall apart too. Just when she was at the edge of despair, a man in a suit found her. "Are you Miss Ruyan?" Ruyan lifted her swollen, red eyes and nodded blankly. "I am a lawyer from Qiming capital. I was sent at Mr. Fang Yuan's request to handle Yuanxing group's debt issues." The lawyer handed over a document. "Mr. Fang has decided to take over all of Yuanxing group's debt. These are the relevant legal documents. I need you to sign them." Ruyan's mind went completely blank. She stared at the document. She recognized every word on it, but put together, she could not make sense of any of it. Fang Yuan had taken over the Liu family's debt. Why would he do this? Shouldn't he hate her? Shouldn't he hate the Liu family? Shouldn't he have watched the Liu family go bankrupt and watched her end up on the street to avenge what she did to him back then? Why was Ruyan's voice so hoarse it was barely recognizable? Mr. Fang said nothing. The lawyer answered her in a business-like tone. He only said this was what he was giving back to Chairman Liu. Giving back to Chairman Liu. Those words sent Ruyan's tears flooding down again. She understood now. He wasn't doing this for her. He was doing it for her father. For the last scraps of respect he still had for an elder. He could have been far more ruthless. He could have made sure she and the Liu family never got back up for the rest of their lives. But he did not. In his own way, he preserved the Liu family's last shred of dignity. And in his own way, he dealt the heaviest blow of all. This kind of mercy was more vicious than any revenge. It left her feeling even more ashamed than ever. With trembling hands, she signed her name on the document. After signing, she seemed to be drained of every last bit of strength. She collapsed onto the floor. She watched the lawyers retreating back, then suddenly remembered something. She rushed after him, grabbing the hem of his jacket. "Wait, can I see him once?" She wanted to thank him in person, and she wanted to apologize to him in person, even if he did not want to hear it at all. The lawyer looked a little troubled. "I'm sorry, Miss Liu. Mr. Fang is returning to Paris this afternoon. He does not want to see you again." That final sentence was like a sharp blade, driving straight through Ruyan's heart. Does not want to see her again. Of course. How could he possibly want to see her? The moment she chose GDA over him, there was nothing left between them but hatred. Now that his vengeance had been paid back, everything had settled. To him, even one more glance at her was a waste of time. Ruyan let go. She leaned against the wall, completely lost. She knew that things between her and Fang Yuan were over for good. No, it had already ended 5 years ago. On that wedding day, it had already been over. It was only because she had kept living inside her own dream. She refused to wake up. Now the dream was over. All that remained was endless regret and pain. She slowly crouched down, burying her face against her knees. A muffled, desperate sob escaped her. At the airport VIP lounge, Fang Yuan was reviewing a document. Qing walked in. "Boss, it's all settled. Miss Liu has already signed." Fang Yuan gave a quiet response. He did not look up. Qing looked at him. He hesitated for a moment. Then he said, "Boss, are you really just going to leave like this? You did so much for the Liu family. At the very least, she should know." "There is no need." Fang Yuan cut him off. "I did all this not to make her grateful. I just wanted to put my own heart at ease." He closed the file. Then he looked out at the plane about to take off. "This city, I will not come back again." Those people he had once loved, and the hearts he had broken, would be sealed away completely with this departure. It was time for his life to turn a new page. Qing looked at his resolute profile and let out a soft sigh. He knew that his boss carried a very deep scar inside. Even after revenge was achieved, that scar would never disappear. Just then, the lounge door was suddenly shoved open. A familiar figure staggered in. It was Liu Ruyan. Her face was deathly pale, her hair in complete disarray, her eyes carrying the last trace of frantic, desperate pleading. Liu Ruyan rushed up to Fang Yuan and grabbed his arm without caring about anything else. Don't go. Please, don't go. Give me one more chance, please. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Let's start over, okay? She was crying so hard she could barely make a sound. She had thrown every last shred of dignity behind her. Fang Yuan looked at her silently. He looked at the woman who had once driven him mad with love, and later driven him mad with hate. Her tears could no longer stir even the faintest ripple in his heart. He slowly pried her fingers loose one by one. Then he took something out of his pocket. It was a photo. A yellowed MMS photo from 5 years ago. In the photo, she was wearing a wedding dress, smiling as she held GDA on the hospital bed. He placed the photo gently into Liu Ruyan's palm. Liu Ruyan, he said. His voice was flat, without a trace of warmth. Look at it, then tell me. What is left between us? Could anything between us ever start over? Liu Ruyan's gaze fell on the photo. Time seemed to freeze at that moment. The version of herself in the photo was smiling so brightly it hurt to look at. That blissful expression was like a poisoned blade, driving straight into her own heart. Yes. What right did she have to beg for a fresh start? She had personally pushed their love into an abyss from which there was no return. She had personally dealt Fang Yuan the most fatal blow. Liu Ruyan opened her mouth, but no sound came out. All her excuses in front of this photo looked weak and pathetic. Her hand was shaking. That light little photo now felt as heavy as a mountain. It nearly crushed her wrist. Fang Yuan did not look at her again. He turned, picked up his coat and briefcase. King, let's go. Fang Yuan. Liu Ruyan clung to his waist from behind. She pressed her face against his broad back. I know I was wrong. I know I deserve to die 10,000 times over. But you cannot just leave like this. Look at me. Look how miserable I am now. GDA ran away. Dad collapsed. Our home is ruined too. I have nothing left. All of this is because of you. You destroyed everything I had. Under that overwhelming despair and shock, her emotions began to spiral out of control. She went from humble begging to frantic accusation. Those words made Fang Yuan, who was about to leave, stop in his tracks. They also made King frown. Fang Yuan slowly turned around. This time, there was no longer cold indifference in his eyes. Instead, a suppressed fury rose within them. Because of me? He asked word by word. There was something dangerous in his voice. Liu Ruyan, do you still think all of this is my fault? Isn't it? Liu Ruyan lifted her head. She looked at him through tear-filled eyes. Her eyes were full of resentment. If you had not come back, if you hadn't taken revenge on GDA, none of this would have happened. My family would not have fallen apart. My father would not have collapsed. You could have let us go. Why did you have to destroy everything? Smack! A crisp slap echoed through the entire waiting lounge. But it was not Fang Yuan who struck. It was King. King stood before Liu Ruyan, his face covered in frost. He rarely lost his composure like this. But Liu Ruyan's words had completely ignited his anger. Miss, please get this straight. King's voice was even colder than Fang Yuan's. The one who ruined everything for you was not my boss. It was you. It was your stupidity, your selfishness, your betrayal. That personally pushed your family into hell. My boss came back, only to take back what was rightfully his. From start to finish, the only person he targeted was that liar GDA. As for you and your family, you were just the most pathetic collateral damage in the scam. Every word King said was like a sharp knife, slicing Liu Ruyan's ridiculous logic into pieces. If my boss had not softened at the end and stepped in to take over Yuanxing's mess, then now, you would probably not even have money left to pay your father's medical bills. He did so much for you, and what he got in return was not your gratitude, but shameless accusations. Liu Ruyan, you are beyond saving. Liu Ruyan was stunned by the slap. She clutched her burning cheek, staring at King in disbelief. Then at Fang Yuan, who said nothing. King's words were like a bucket of ice water, dragging her back from the edge of madness. Yes. What was she saying? She was accusing the very man who had just saved her entire family. How had she become like this? So hateful, so unreasonable? A huge wave of shame completely swallowed her. She collapsed weakly to the floor, too drained to even cry. From beginning to end, Fang Yuan did not say another word. He only looked coldly at Liu Ruyan, slumped on the floor, as if she were a stranger with nothing to do with him. Then he turned. and walked toward the boarding gate without looking back. Qing followed behind him. As he passed by Ruyan, he paused for a moment. He pulled a business card from his wallet and dropped it in front of Ruyan. If you ever have any problems you cannot solve in the future, call this number. This is not the boss's idea. It is mine personally. That's all. Considering you were once my boss's fiancé, I do not want to see you starve to death on the street. With that, he quickly caught up to Fang Yuan. In the waiting lounge, only Ruyan was left alone. She looked at the business card lying on the floor, then at the yellowed photo in her hand. Two things. One represented the humble future she might still have. The other represented the brilliant past she could never return to. The brilliant past. At last, she could not hold back and burst into tears. This time, there was no more pleading or resentment in her sobs. Only endless regret. The plane flew steadily at 30,000 feet. Fang Yuan leaned against the window. He looked out at the rolling sea of clouds. His expression was unreadable. Qing gently handed him a glass of red wine. Thanks for earlier. Fang Yuan took the glass. He said lightly. That slap had vented the last knot of frustration in his chest. I am your assistant. Protecting your reputation is my duty. Qing answered calmly. Besides, I was only telling the truth. Fang Yuan swirled the wine in his glass. He said nothing. Qing looked at him. After a moment's hesitation, he still asked the question on his mind. Boss, why are you helping the Liu family? With your style, this does not seem like something you would do. Fang Yuan was silent for a long time. So long that Qing thought he would not answer. I am not helping them, he said softly. I am just saying goodbye. Qing froze. 5 years ago, I was abandoned by her and left with nothing. It was Chairman Liu who, before I left, secretly slipped me a bank card. There was 200,000 yuan on it. He said, Kid, don't hold it against Ryan. The Liu family wronged you. Take this money and start over abroad. A complicated look flashed through Fang Yuan's eyes. I did not spend this money. The moment I returned home, I gave it back to him. But I remembered that kindness. Now I have repaid that debt of gratitude. From now on, the Liu family and I owe each other nothing. Qing finally understood. So there had been such an old story. He finally understood why the boss had made that decision. He was not some saint. He was simply holding to his own principles and limits. He drew a clear line between gratitude and revenge. That was the real Fang Yuan. And Miss Liu? Qing asked again. Have you really let her go for good? Fang Yuan turned and looked at Qing. His gaze was deep and steady. Qing, do you know, when a person makes you feel nothing but disgust and annoyance, then so-called love and hate have long since vanished like smoke and clouds. When I look at her now, it is like looking at a piece of trash by the roadside. I will not step on it, but I will never pick it up again. His words were calm and cruel, yet Qing's heart gave an inexplicable jolt. In his eyes, he saw a kind of peace he had never seen before. It was the calm after a true storm. He knew the boss had truly moved on. He had completely walked out of that unbearable past. Then Qing's face broke into a faint smile of its own. Should we celebrate a little? Fang Yuan looked at his bright smile and paused. Then he smiled too. It was the first genuine smile he had shown in 5 years. No longer a cold sneer, and not a polite mask. It was a relaxed, relieved smile. He raised his glass to celebrate a new beginning. The two glasses met high above the clouds. Touching gently, they rang with a clear chime. A beam of sunlight pierced through the clouds outside, lighting up the entire cabin. It also lit up Fang Yuan's brand new future. Just when Fang Yuan thought everything had finally settled, his private phone suddenly buzzed. It was a video sent from an encrypted unknown number. It was a video clip. The footage was dimly lit, as if it had been shot in a basement. A man was tied to a chair. A man covered in injuries had his head yanked up roughly. That face was unmistakably GDA, missing for many days. Behind GDA stood a tall man. The man had his back to the camera, so his face could not be seen. He was holding a phone. On the screen, there was a photo of Fang Yuan in the airport VIP lounge. Through the video, a hoarse voice, electronically altered, came through. Fang Yuan, long time no see. Do you like the return gift I sent you? Don't rush. Our game has only just begun. At the end of the video, the backlit man slowly turned his head. Even though the light was dim, Fang Yuan still recognized that face at a glance. The face he thought he would never see again. His pupils contracted sharply. That face was carved into Fang Yuan's bones and heart. Zhou, his former best friend. and also the best man at his wedding. The one who, after Ruyan abandoned him, the only one who had patted his shoulder and said, "Brother, take it easy," and had his back. The one who still kept in touch after he went abroad, telling him what was happening back home. How could it be him? Fang Yuan's mind went blank. The Zhou in the video wore a strange, crazed smile. He was nothing like the sunny, easygoing man in Fang Yuan's memory. He made a shushing gesture toward the camera, and then the video cut off. The sunlight in the cabin seemed to lose all warmth at that moment. Fang Yuan only felt a chill surge from his feet to the top of his head. "Boss, what is it?" King noticed something was wrong with him and asked with concern. Fang Yuan did not answer. He stared at the phone. The screen replayed that video again and again. He tried to find in Zihang's eyes a trace of a joke, but all he saw was cold, undisguised malice. Why? Countless questions surged up in his mind like a tide. If Zihang was the mastermind behind it all, then what was that wedding farce 5 years ago? Was GDA's appearance a coincidence, or had he planned it himself? And what was his purpose in doing all this? Fang Yuan felt as if he had fallen into a huge maze, and everything he had believed before had been completely overturned. What he thought was the end had only been another starting point. He thought he was the hunter, not realizing he had long ago become a pawn in someone else's game. Fang Yuan's voice was terribly hoarse. "Immediately. Use all our contacts and resources at once. Find me one person, Zhou. I want to know everything about him over these 5 years, in full detail." Looking at the unprecedented seriousness and killing intent in Fang Yuan's eyes, King felt a chill. He realized something serious had happened. "Yes, boss." He did not ask any more questions. He immediately pulled out his laptop and started issuing orders. The plane landed in Paris. Fang Yuan did not go home. Instead, he went straight to the company's secret base, a top-level secure information processing center. Over the next 72 hours, Fang Yuan did not close his eyes. He stayed in front of the screens, watching countless pieces of information about Zhou coming from around the world. As the investigation deepened, a huge conspiracy hidden for 5 years slowly surfaced. Zhou was completely different from how he looked on the surface. His father had once been a giant in business, but in a financial storm 10 years ago, he was driven into bankruptcy by Fang Yuan's father and several other companies, and forced to jump from a building. From then on, the Zhou family plummeted. Zhou went from a favored son of heaven to a fallen young master living under someone else's roof. But he buried that hatred deep in his heart. He concealed it well. He even took the initiative to get close to Fang Yuan. He became his best friend. He had been waiting for an opportunity that would let the Fang family taste the pain of losing everything and everyone they loved. And Fang Yuan and Ruyan's wedding was the stage he chose. The investigation report showed that 5 years ago, GDA never came back to the country at all because he had been involved in illegal gambling overseas. He had run up massive debts. He was being held captive. It was Zhou who found him. Zhou paid off all his debts for him, then handed him a script that would send him back home to steal Ruyan away and strip the Liu family bare. That so-called emergency call, that provocative MMS photo, were all arranged by Zhou himself. What he wanted was not just to make Fang Yuan lose face at the wedding. He wanted a longer game. He knew that Liu Zhenbang's Yuanxing group and Fang Yuan's father's company had countless layers of cooperation between them. Once Yuanxing group was hollowed out and plunged into crisis, it would inevitably drag the Fang family's business down with it. And GDA was the blade he used to hollow out Yuanxing. He had calculated everything. He had even calculated that with Fang Yuan's personality, he would definitely leave everything behind after being betrayed. That gave him enough time to carry out his plan. But there was one thing he had not counted on. Fang Yuan's rise was far faster than he had imagined. Fang Yuan was not only not crushed, he instead returned 5 years later, with the bearing of a king, and cleanly stripped the knife from his hand. GDA had completely thrown Zhou's entire plan into chaos. That was why he chose to show himself now. He wanted to tell Fang Yuan the game was not over yet. Looking at the shocking lines of information on the screen, Fang Yuan's fist clenched with a faint crack. A raging fire blazed in his chest, not because he had been deceived nor because of that engineer betrayal, but because he had actually treated the son of the man who killed his father as his closest friend. He had been toyed with in the palm of that man's hand for a full 10 years. What irony! What stupidity. Het. Fang Yuan laughed softly. The sound was full of self-mockery and cold killing intent. Zhou, you are very good. You are really very good. You succeeded in making me understand what real betrayal means. Qing's quiet voice pulled him back from his rage. Our people have found GDA's approximate location. He's in an abandoned factory in Eastern Europe. It's a local gang stronghold. The security is tight. Fang Yuan's gaze sharpened instantly. Where is Zhou? He himself should still be in the country. Qing pulled up a surveillance screenshot. It was taken 3 hours ago. He was photographed outside our domestic branch office. In the photo, Zhou was leaning against a black car, looking up at Qiming Capital's logo. There was an unreadable smile on his face. He was provoking us. He was telling Fang Yuan, I'm right here. I'm on your turf, but you can't catch me. What does he want? Qing frowned. He captured GDA, then exposed himself on purpose. What good does that do him? He's not exposing himself. A glint of cold light flashed in Fang Yuan's eyes. He's inviting me. He knows my personality. After learning the truth, I would never let it go. He knows I'll definitely go back to him. Fang Yuan stood up. His gaze swept over Zhihang's face on the screen, and the captive GDA was the bait he set for me. He wants me to go save GDA. Qing was even more confused. Save GDA? Why? GDA is already a discarded pawn to him. GDA is not an expendable pawn. Fang Yuan gave a cold laugh. GDA is the only living witness who can testify to all his crimes. Zhou is extremely arrogant and cautious. He would never leave such a huge loophole behind. So he won't kill GDA with his own hands. He wants to use my hands to get rid of GDA. Fang Yuan's thoughts became crystal clear in an instant. That abandoned factory in Eastern Europe is definitely a trap. He has calculated that I would send people to save GDA, and he will have laid a net waiting there. He wants to use GDA to wear down part of my power in Europe, and then he can stay in the country and play one-on-one with me at ease. Qing listened in fear. Zhou is far too shrewd and calculating. Every step is full of calculation and traps. Then what should we do now? Qing was worried. If we go save him, it's a trap. If we do not save him, GDA dies, and we lose our most important witness. It's an impossible choice. Fang Yuan was silent for a moment. Then a cold curve rose at the corner of his mouth. Who said I would follow his script? He turned to Qing. Book the tickets home right now. I want to meet this good brother of mine in person. As for GDA's side, a ruthless glint flashed in Fang Yuan's eyes. Send our best mercenary team over. Tell them the mission has only one objective. At all costs, bring GDA back alive. But Fang Yuan paused. Then he added, if they run into an uncontrollable situation, they can abandon the mission. Qing shuddered inwardly. He understood what the boss meant. GDA's life, compared to the boss's safety, was worth nothing. Yes, boss. Fang Yuan turned his gaze back to the screen. Zhou, don't you want to play? Fine, I'll play with you. This time, I will not give you another chance. I will crush every trap you laid, one by one, and then make you pay back every last debt you owe my Fang family. All of it. Fang Yuan's return home was faster than anyone had expected. He did not notify the domestic branch, and there were no accompanying staff. Only he and Qing landed quietly in this familiar city. After leaving the airport, Fang Yuan did not go to the company or return to the hotel. He got into a black sedan that had been waiting there. The driver nodded. He started the car. Qing sat in the passenger seat. Through the rearview mirror, he looked at the cold-faced man in the back seat and knew who he was going to see. The cemetery was in the suburbs. It was very quiet, holding a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. Fang Yuan walked alone up the familiar stone steps. He stopped before a gravestone. On it was his father's gentle smile. Dad, I'm back. He set the white chrysanthemums down gently. He crouched and brushed the dirt off the gravestone with his hand. I'm sorry I'm only coming to see you now. And I'm sorry I let a wolf into the house. I let that beast lurk by your side for so long. Fang Yuan's voice was very low, very deep, carrying repressed regret and anger. He stayed here for a long time. He said nothing. He only stared quietly at his father's photo until the sun went down, stretching his shadow very long. Only then did he slowly stand up. Dad, don't worry. I will avenge you. The debts of the Fang family. I will settle each debt with them one by one. When he finished, he turned and left without hesitation. His back looked especially bleak in the afterglow of sunset, yet it carried an unyielding resolve. Back in the city, Fang Yuan did not go looking for Zhou Ziyang right away. He knew very well that taking the initiative to show up now would only walk him into the other side's trap. Zhou Ziyang was the kind of man who liked controlling everything. What he needed to do was break that control. He checked into an unremarkable hotel and then began laying out his own plan. The first step was the Liu family. He had Qing announce in the name of Qiming capital to the outside world that Yuanxing group would undergo a full restructuring of its assets. At the same time, he used his own private connections to bring in the country's best neurology specialist for a consultation on Liu Zhenbang. This news caused a huge stir in business circles. Everyone thought Fang Yuan was trying to take over the Liu family. Some even speculated whether he and Liu Ruyan were about to rekindle their relationship. Only Fang Yuan himself knew the purpose of what he was doing. He needed to stabilize the Liu family. Yuanxing group was an important link in Zhou Zihang's plan. Now he had that link firmly in his own hands. He wanted Zhou Ziyang to know that what you painstakingly built up and wanted to destroy is now under my protection. It was a silent provocation. The third step was public opinion. Fang Yuan had Qing leak evidence of GDA's fraud and part of the proof that Yuanxing group had been stripped bare by accident to several influential financial media outlets. All the evidence obscured Zhou Zihang's traces and pointed straight at GDA and Liu Ruyan. In an instant, public opinion exploded. A scammer who married into wealth and hollowed out his father-in-law's fortune. A love-struck socialite who ruined a $100 billion family empire. All kinds of clickbait headlines went viral online. GDA and Liu Ruyan became public enemies everyone wanted to beat on sight. Fang Yuan wanted to use this method to focus everyone's attention on this family soap opera and clear the way for his next move. He wanted to muddy the waters. The murkier the water, the easier it was for him to hide. Sure enough, Zhou Ziyang reacted quickly. That night, Fang Yuan received a package. Inside was a brand new phone. As soon as he turned it on, he got a video call. On the screen was Zhou Zihang's smiling face. Fang Yuan, my good brother, you're back in the country. And you did not even tell me. His tone was as relaxed as if he were chatting with an old friend. I really like the gift you sent me. First you restructure Yuanxing, then you hire an expert. You really want to be the Liu family's savior, don't you? Have you forgotten how Liu Ruyan treated you? Zhou Ziyang smiled with a knowing look. Or are you still hung up on her? Zhou Ziyang, Fang Yuan cut him off. His voice was ice cold. Cut the nonsense. What do you want? Straight to the point. Zhou Ziyang snapped his fingers. I like you the way you are now. You're much more interesting than you used to be. Since you're being so direct, then I will not beat around the bush either. 8 o'clock tomorrow night. The abandoned dock on the west side of the city. Just me. Just you. Let's have a good talk about the brotherhood between us, and also the feud between our fathers. When he finished, he hung up. Qing listened from the side, his heart pounding with fear. Boss, this is obviously a trap. You can't go. I know. But there was not the slightest trace of tension on Fang Yuan's face. But since he invited me, there's no reason not to go. Still, don't worry. Fang Yuan looked at him, his eyes filled with unwavering confidence. I'm not going alone. The next night was as dark as ink. The abandoned dock on the west side of the city lay in complete silence. The sea breeze swept through, lifting the dust from the ground. It gave off a mournful whistling sound. Zhou Ziyang stood at the end of the dock, his back to Fang Yuan, staring out at the pitch-black sea in the distance. Today he wore a black trench coat. He stood tall and straight, with more than a hint of a warlord's presence. Fang Yuan walked out of the darkness step by step. He really had come alone. You're here. Zhou Ziyang did not turn around, his voice drifting slightly on the sea breeze. I'm here. Fang Yuan stopped 10 meters behind him. I thought you would bring a squad of police with you. Zhou Ziyang gave a soft laugh. I don't need them to deal with you. Zhou Ziyang slowly turned around. A trace of admiration touched his smile. Not bad. You've got guts. Fang Yuan, do you know something? I've always admired you. Too bad you're a member of the Fang family. We're destined to be enemies. Cut the crap. Fang Yuan's gaze was as cold and sharp as a blade. What does my father's death have to do with you? That was the question he most wanted to know. The answer to it. At those words, Zhou Zihang's smile suddenly turned a little twisted. Of course, it has everything to do with it. If it weren't for your sanctimonious father, working with outsiders, and setting a trap, how could my dad have gone bankrupt? How could he have jumped from a building? I watched him jump from the rooftop with my own eyes. He crashed down right in front of me, his brains spilling out. Zhou Ziyang grew agitated. His eyes were bloodshot. From that day on, I swore that I would make the Fang family pay in blood. Fang Yuan's heart sank. He had already guessed as much, but hearing it with his own ears still left him gasping for air. So this was where the 10 years of hatred came from. So, you planned all of this? That's right. Zhou did not hide it at all. I went to great lengths to get close to you, to become your best friend. I watched you fall in love with Ruyan, and then, at the height of your happiness, I dealt you the deadliest blow. I just wanted you to feel it too. Taste what it feels like to fall from heaven into hell. I wanted you to experience what it feels like to be betrayed by the person closest to you. He laughed, wild and smug. How about it, Fang? These past 5 years, have you been doing well? Every night overseas, did you ever think of that wedding the whole world laughed at? Did you ever hate Ruyan? Hate GDA? Let me tell you, they were all just my pawns. I was the one truly playing you. Fang Yuan listened in silence, his face showing no expression at all. Only after Zhou had laughed enough did he slowly speak. Are you done? Zhou froze for a moment. He had expected Fang Yuan to be furious, to break down, to scream. But he had not expected him to be this calm. Calm to the point of being terrifying. If you're done, then it's my turn. A cold curve touched the corner of Fang Yuan's mouth. Zhou, do you really think you've already won? The words had barely left his mouth when, all around the dock, dozens of blinding headlights suddenly flared on. They lit up the entire dock, bright as day. Dozens of black sedans had somehow already sealed off the place completely. The doors opened, and one burly man after another in black suits stepped out of the cars. They surrounded Zhou. Zhou face finally changed. Why you didn't come alone? Fang Yuan said coolly. But I didn't come alone. Do you think you're the only one who can set a trap? Zhou's expression darkened to the extreme. He had not expected Fang Yuan to play him like this. What do you want? Kill me. He let out a cold laugh. You dare. This is still China. Do you think your influence makes you untouchable? Of course I don't dare, Fang Yuan said with a smile. But someone else does. With that, he snapped his fingers. The crowd parted to make a path. An old man with gray hair, leaning on a cane, but still sharp-eyed, slowly came forward with the help of 2 people. When Zhou saw that old man, his pupils suddenly contracted, and the color drained from his face in an instant. Uncle Wang. His voice turned sharp with sheer terror. Uncle Wang had been his father's most trusted deputy before his father died, and also a first-hand witness to that business war back then. After his father died, Wang Shu vanished without a trace. Everyone thought he had retired from the scene. How could he be here? And with Fang Yuan? Uncle Wang looked at him, his aged face full of heartbreak and disappointment. You've lost your way. I searched for you for 10 years, and never thought you'd end up on this path. Uncle Wang. What do you mean? A powerful sense of unease rose in Zhou's chest. What do I mean? Uncle Wang brought his cane down hard on the ground. Do you really think your father's death was caused by Chairman Fang? Wasn't it? Zhou roared. Uncle Wang's voice suddenly rose. Back then, during that business war, Chairman Fang never once intended to drive your father to his death. They were rivals, but also friends. The one who truly killed your father was someone else entirely. As Uncle Wang spoke, he pulled a yellow document from his jacket, along with a recorder. This was the last contract your father signed before he went bankrupt, the deadliest overseas investment deal. And on this recorder is the voice of the person who talked him into signing that contract. Take a good look for yourself. Listen carefully. Uncle Wang tossed the items at Zhou's feet. Zhou trembled as he picked up the document and the recorder. When he saw the contract, the signature of the third-party guarantor made his entire body go rigid. He pressed play on the recorder. A voice he knew all too well, yet that filled him with absolute dread, came through the speaker. Old Zhou, believe me, if you sign on to this project, it will be our only chance to turn things around. And no, impossible. Zhou collapsed to the ground, his face ashen as death. This can't be possible, because that signature, that voice, belonged to the same person, the one he trusted most and respected most. And for the past 10 years, he had been behind the scenes, the one quietly supporting and encouraging his revenge. His own uncle Zhou Mingwei.